here with Lance Archer, talking to him after a phenomenal showing.
The American Psycho Lance Archer.
The American Psycho Lance Archer.
Get it right.
Man, that's scary just to say the American Psycho. God.
Damn right it's scary.
Following up a phenomenal showing in the G1 Classic, what did it feel like to be part of such a prestigious wrestling event?
You know, it was really cool because it was actually not my first one. I've been a part of 5 now. I did 4 in a row, 2011, 12, 13, and 14. I did about a 5-year hiatus, but it was brought back into it. You know, being with New Japan for the last 8 years, it was kind of really cool because it was a kind of a resurgence, a chance for reinvent, to reestablish, to kind of tell people this is who the American Psycho Lance Archer is. Not who you thought I was, but this is who I am now and who I am going forward. So it's really cool, just like I said, reinventing myself, changing my look, my image, my intensity, my ring work style, everything that went along with it. It was really cool. And knowing that the platform that the G1 Climax is now, being on Access TV, obviously New Japan World, Fight TV, all those different platforms, everybody around the world was watching, so it was a really cool moment.
Well, and that's part of it, right? So you mentioned being in multiple G1s, obviously, having been with New Japan for a while now, but New Japan has kind of had this great American resurgence in the last few years where more American fans' eyes are on New Japan as they are all independent wrestling. New Japan, of course, being a worldwide wrestling promotion, right? And so as New Japan has grown over here, and of course you being with them, what does it mean to you to see more American fans gravitate towards the New Japan product?
It's just really cool for the wrestling world altogether. You know, I think we're in a time of professional wrestling that it just really never has seen. You know, there were the old school territory days that you talk about. Then you had the Monday Night Wars with WCW and WWF and whatnot. And it's been a long time. And right now, because of WWE still is making the money that it's making and doing what it's doing, the biggest company in the world still, but you've got a lot of companies that are on their heels, and the wrestling fans are the ones that are fueling this, which is what makes it amazingly cool. New Japan Pro Wrestling is a company that's been around for about 50 years, and now all of a sudden we're taking over the world. The US market, the UK market, Australia, CMLL, and Mexico, and everything that's going on down there. AEW, which is the reason everybody's here in Chicago this weekend with Starrcast and everything that's happening. You know, the independent wrestling scene with like Warrior Wrestling that I'm going to be a part of on Sunday here in Chicago. Everything is getting so big and everything's been so cool, and the fan base is supporting it in ways that I don't think they've ever done before in the past, and that's what's making it really cool. So to be a part of New Japan since 2011, to see it grow from just being more or less a Japanese company into a worldwide brand and being a part of that in different avenues and different effects, and now being, you know, in the G1 and having that platform to perform in front of the fan base, for me, it's just really cool. And it's really special because, like I said, I've been there for 8 years now. So I've seen it change. I've seen it grow.
You mentioned the G1, and on your debut night, you did something pretty cool. You debuted a new finisher, the Claw, of course, a throwback to the Von Erichs.
Right.
Of course, you are in Dallas for that opening night. Why is this move so important to you as a professional wrestler and as a fan?
You know, it was one of those things. Like I knew going to the G1 that we were going to open up the G1 in Dallas. I knew that I was going to be the opening match in the G1, and I knew that it would be a really cool and special moment, especially in Dallas, Texas, with the history of the Von Erich family and the Claw and what it was to the history of pro wrestling, to kind of bring it back and make it viable in 2019. You know, this is an era of some of the most athletic and amazing wrestlers in the world. Alex Zane, that I'm going to be fighting at Warrior Wrestling, is one of those guys that's doing some of the most insanely cool, amazing athletic things that wrestling has ever seen before. But to be able to take something as simple and cool and as effective as the Claw and bring it back to 2019 wrestling, and for the fan base to understand it and accept it, beyond cool and special for me.
What did the Von Erichs mean to you?
You know, it's one of those things, like when I first started wrestling, I truly didn't know the family. I didn't know the history of the family. I didn't know what they'd done in the business, and I didn't know what they'd done in Dallas. And then I moved into Dallas, and everything became such a big deal, you know, because everybody's like, the Von Erichs, the Von Erichs, the Von Erichs. And then to understand their history and understand their sacrifice for the wrestling world. You know, for me, it's really special, like I said, because most of my career started in Dallas and has been in Dallas. I've lived there my entire career. I've wrestled there in countless independent promotions over my 19 years of professional wrestling. So to be able to come back to Dallas and wrestle in the American Airlines Center and bring the Claw to the American Airlines Center, the home, you know, of the Von Erichs, not the American Airlines Center, but Dallas.
Sure.
Again, just a very cool and special moment in the special family.
One final question for you. We've talked a lot about G1, how big of a deal it is, New Japan, all that jazz. But people are saying the Wednesday Night Wars, right? You hear some talent talking about it. You see WWE making moves with their Wednesday night product.
Right.
Are we heading into an era of the Wednesday Night Wars? Should fans expect the level of what we had back, 20 years ago? Or is this all just a little bit of hype and hyperbole from both companies?
I think the fun thing about the Wednesday Night Wars is obviously you're throwing back to the Monday Night Wars. But that was a different time. You had to have 2 VCRs, and you had to tape everything, and you had to make a choice. You either watched WWF or you watched WCW, or you watched the first half of one show and then tuned into the last half of the second show, or whatever the case was back then. Now, in the era of DVR and all that stuff, it's a different time frame, but I think the fun part about it is that people are going to want to watch both products. I think the amount of talent that is in NXT at the moment, the amount of talent that's in AEW at the moment, if they're tuning in on Wednesday night, they're going to make sure they watch both products. They're probably not going to choose just one or the other. They're going to be very vocal, I think, on Twitter and social medias and stuff at, which one they like the best for that night, but they're going to watch both of them. I don't think it's necessarily a case where, like I said, back in those days, most people either just watch WCW or they just watch WWF. Now they're going to watch both because they want to see everybody that's wrestling on those products, and they want to compare them, and they want to talk about it and who's their favorites and so on and so forth. And then, unless I end up on the Wednesday Night Wars, I'm just worried about the Saturday night delight that is New Japan Pro Wrestling on Access TV.
If you could end up, I know I said final question, one more that I got to ask. If you could end up on one of the shows, Wednesday Night Wars, who are you going with?
Who's paying me more?
There you go. We'll have it.